All right, so I want to talk about volume, intensity, volume. There is an inverse relationship between the two, meaning when one goes up, the other has to drop. And when I speak of intensity, I mean effort, intensity of effort, not load. So this is relative intensity, not absolute. So I was speaking to a gentleman today, and he's older, and it seems like all the older guys like me. It's because I am old. I'm one of those old farts. So he's jacked. He's in his 50s. He's jacked. He's got some muscle. He's doing good. He's looking good. And I suspect there's more to the story, right? We haven't had that conversation at all, and it doesn't even matter. But I was like, hey, how was your workout? And he's like, it was good. He works out with his boys. And he said, yeah, we did 10 sets. It was eight or 10 sets, 100 reps a set. And I'm like, whoa, 10 sets, 100 repetitions for each set. Now, granted, I don't know if it was like really low load, or if it was like really low load and you're just blasting through, then it's probably not doing a whole lot. But they work pretty hard. I watch them. They have sufficient intensity, shall we say. It's not like muscular failure, but there's sufficient intensity for sure. But there's a lot of volume. And I was like, wow, high volume. And he's like, yeah, that's right, high volume. And I'm like, dang, that's crazy. And that was the end of the conversation. But I want to highlight this dichotomy between intensity and volume. And when you're natural and younger, so both, you have, well, natural and older, shall we say, but you have this finite recovery ability. And when you're natural, that finite recovery ability only goes so high. You have a ceiling. And when you get older, that ceiling drops. Now, when you're enhanced and you're not natural, that recovery adaptation ability from the workout, because you have the stressor, the workout, and then you have to recover from that workout to allow the adaptations to take place. And if you don't allow that recovery adaptation process to occur, then you're not going to see results. Consequently, you're not going to grow. So when you're natural, you have to be very aware, hyper aware of your own recovery ability. And so we have these variables, so intensity of effort, we have volume, and we have frequency. And when you're natural, these three variables, it's a balancing act. You have to be very careful. I, of course, prioritize intensity of effort. I believe that plus progressive load is the key factor in hypertrophy, muscle growth. But when you're older and or natural, you have to be very cognizant of this recovery ability, which volume and frequency and intensity will all dip into. Now, since intensity should remain high, because that fosters the greatest result, that, again, like I said, that plus progressive loading, we have these other two variables that we have to be aware of when it comes to recovery, so volume and frequency. So when you're natural, you have to be very concerned about volume and frequency. And when you're enhanced, you don't really need to be that concerned. You kind of get, you can make more, there's more room for errors, shall we say. And so when you're older, same thing, you have to be more aware because your recovery ability decreases as we age. So you cannot tolerate the same amount of stress that you could when you're younger. So when you're younger and or when you're taking PEDs, bodybuilding drugs that promote anabolism, they support recovery. So they're like anti-catabolic hormones that essentially stave off catabolism. So you have a heightened ability to recover from the workouts, meaning you can do more volume and or go in more frequently. And whenever you're younger and or enhanced, you can do this. When you're natural, it's harder. You have to be more aware of your recovery ability. And when you get older, you have to be more aware of your recovery ability. So he is in his 50s, and that was extremely high volume. And when he told me that, I was like, whoa, that would wreck me. That would wreck me. I know when I do too much volume, because my intensity is high, because again, I'm a firm believer in intensity of effort plus progressive loading, and they are synergistic, they go hand in hand. But I know as I push volumes higher, I get to a point where I have a systemic effect where it's brief, but it's like a systemic flu. I have flu-like symptoms. And this is directly attributed to the amount of volume that I do in the session. So volume has to be capped. You provide the stimulus and you have to cap volume so you don't tread into this, shall we say, overtraining scenario. So overtraining syndrome it compounds, it takes time, but these are signs that you could be treading into that territory, and your body will let you know. Now, everyone's recovery ability is different. Everyone. So it's very individual. But being in his 50s, and he's jacked, he's probably taking something, more than likely, and that's, cool. Like, whatever, right? To each their own. That's not my jam, and that's not what I'm doing over here. I'm doing this the natural way. So that means I have to be more cautious, more aware of my program design and these fundamental variables and how I implement them. It's imperative. So when he told me that, I was like, whoa, of course, that, like I said, that was the end of the conversation. But I was like, holy smokes. That would literally wreck me. And I know it does, because I've done high volume. Now, you can do it for a brief period of time. Like if you blast it for like a week or two, that's fine. That's okay. But you can't sustain that. And he might have been doing that, right? I don't know. I didn't get into his program and what he was doing. But you have to be very aware of this volume variable when you hedge it up against intensity, because there is that inverse relationship, and of course frequency as well. So as you get older, you have to be aware, more aware, and if you're natural and you're not taking stuff, you have to be more aware. So I know for a fact that that workout that he did, it would crush me. It would totally crush me. Now, if you're just doing biceps, right, or some small muscle group, medial delts, that's different, but if it's like a full-on workout where you're doing like compound multi-joint movements, 10 sets, 100 reps per set, different movements, you gotta be careful with that. So just be aware of your finite recovery ability. It's different for everyone, and there are factors involved when it comes to recovery. And two of the big ones are you chemically enhanced, or are you not? And then, of course, your age. But like I said, again, this is dependent, it's variable from person to person. Even muscle groups will respond differently to stress tolerance and how much stress they can take, and then respond, adapt, and grow. But just be aware of your finite recovery ability, especially when you're natural and as you get older.